Most professionals don't realize that when they speak, executives aren't just judging the idea, they're scanning for signals that show who is ready to lead. And if you don't communicate in the way that I'm about to show you, you won't get picked for bigger opportunities and promotions, even if your idea is great. As a senior employee, I've been presenting in executive boardrooms daily for years, and I had to learn this the hard way after watching one of my own ideas come out of someone else's mouth, just said slightly differently, and seeing them get the praise and promotions for it. So in this video, I will show you how to communicate effectively with executives to position yourself for guaranteed promotions, how to avoid being too technical in your explanations and what to do instead, and how to make sure that your ideas are never stolen again. To start, I'll show you the common mistake even smart professionals make that costs them credibility and prevents them from getting bigger opportunities. So one of my clients was interviewing for a C-suite role, and they had to present an idea to the exec team. They were clearly capable and had done the work properly, but they faced a common challenge that I see most professionals face, and if they take the option that most people go for, then they're not going to get selected for an executive role. Their problem was that they didn't want to sound too technical. But every time they stripped out detail, it felt like they were oversimplifying things. And that's the danger, because a simple plan without the right signals isn't going to elevate you. It actually lowers your credibility with executives. And when that happens, they'll just continue to see you as an employee and not a leader. And this is what costs smart professionals senior promotions. But once we work through the steps that I'm about to show you, he was able to show the idea in a way that builds authority and credibility with executives without having to sacrifice detail or position him as someone who didn't have a clear plan. And the key to getting this result for yourself is understanding this framework here. So this is the buy-in framework, and it shows the 3 things executives actually look for before agreeing to an idea. And they are that the idea is desirable, achievable, and acceptable. The key to building credibility with executives and getting leadership opportunities and promotions is understanding that when an executive is evaluating an idea, no matter how big or small that idea is, they're not judging the steps or the implementation of the idea. They're scanning it for these 3 things. And if they see all 3, then they agree to the idea. If they don't, well, that's when it stalls, and this is where you could expose yourself as someone who's not ready for leadership opportunities. There's also a 4th hidden element to this, one that stops your ideas from being taken and just reframed by someone else, and I'll show you that at the end. So now I'm going to show you exactly how to unlock leadership positions by building credibility with leadership without sounding too technical or making it sound like you don't actually have a proper, well thought through plan. So the first part of this framework is the part I see most professionals get completely wrong, because it sounds so obvious, but it's actually the reason that even smart professionals are not going to get recognized for bigger opportunities, and it's making the idea sound desirable. So let me show you the common mistake most professionals make and exactly how you can fix it. So just before New Year, I was talking to this mechanic about fixing my car, and the way he communicated with me made it impossible for me to say yes. So I drop the car off, right? And he takes a look at it for a while. I wait around. He comes back and he says, right, it'll be $1,500 to fix this. I said, okay, but for what? What's actually wrong with the car? He then launched into this long technical explanation full of jargon about combustion, ignition, and things that I just don't understand. I mean, look at these soft, doughy hands. They're built for keyboards. These have never seen a hard day's work in their life. So I said to the mechanic, all right, but what actually needs to be done then? He said, well, you pay $1,500 and I'll fix it. At this point, I was pretty lost. So I said, well, is this the only way to fix it, or are there other options? And we just went around in circles for a bit, and eventually I walked away and left. The problem was, the suggestions he made to fix the car didn't really tick any part of this framework, and so I couldn't say yes to it. And this is the same mistake I see professionals make all the time. It's that they're acting like this mechanic. Just like him, they assume that senior leaders will buy into their ideas because they've explained the detail. But explaining the details doesn't actually make something feel risk-free or achievable or even desirable. It just proves that you understand the work. Now, you might be thinking, well, it is desirable because taking these actions of paying $1,500 will fix the car, and that's obviously the result I want. But once you understand that results actually work a lot more like this iceberg, you start to see where most people go wrong and what's holding them back from seeing new opportunities. You see, there's the surface level result, and then there's everything sitting underneath it. The surface level result is the obvious outcome people say they want. But in order to believe they'll actually get it, what they really care about are all these things that sit below the surface. And that's where the mechanic fell short. He was giving me a technical explanation of the steps that would lead to the top level result, which is the car being fixed. But what I actually wanted were all these things that sit below the surface, like reassurance that the problem is going to be solved long term, that this fix is not going to cause more issues down the line, and I wasn't going to be back in the same position I was now in a few weeks. So in order to position yourself as leadership ready, instead of explaining the steps to implement your idea, explain how your idea delivers the results below the surface. Because when you do that, executives start to see you as someone who can be trusted with outcomes and not just actions. And when that happens, you build real credibility, unlock bigger opportunities, and put yourself in the frame for more senior roles. So this next step of the framework is going to stop you making the mistake that costs you bigger opportunities and senior roles, and it's about making your idea sound achievable. So I was once rejected from this internal interview, and because it was internal, I was able to get proper feedback. They told me that they liked the ideas that I had, they just didn't think that I was the one who was going to be able to deliver them. And I pushed back on this. I said, but I've done similar things before, that these approaches already work in my department, and I had a structured way of addressing the exact concerns that they raised. And what they said next was what made me realize where I was going wrong this whole time. It's also the thing that holds a lot of smart professionals back because it creates doubt, and that doubt stops people being trusted for bigger roles. So what they said to me was, so why didn't you say that then? What I'd done, just like the mechanic, was explain all the technical implementation steps of my plan instead of making it sound achievable. And when that happens, people don't question the idea, they question you. So here's exactly how to avoid that. And it's the same thing that's been working really well for my clients recently. And there are two parts to this: structure and past success. When you're communicating with executives, phrases like, I found success with, or what's working well for others right now is make an idea feel achievable because it's already been proven to work somewhere else. And if you can make them believe the idea is already successful, then they'll want you to do the same for them. And this is what unlocks more senior roles for people. Now, the other lever is structure. So saying things like, this idea is built on the following 3 pillars, or there are 2 parts to making this successful. Anything that sounds like it adds structure will make the idea feel simpler, safer, repeatable, and tried and tested. So let me show you what this might look like. Now, imagine the mechanic had said something like this instead. Josh, I've checked your cart and I've seen this same issue a lot with this model, and my clients have been really happy with this fix. My approach is always to fix the root cause, make sure the problem is fully restored, and reduce the risk of anything else failing down the line. To do that, I'm going to carry out a routine fix on this ignition system. I've also noticed another component that isn't an issue yet, but it will need some attention soon, so it makes sense to replace it whilst I'm down there working on the car. All in, it's going to be $1,500. Now that sounds so much better and so much more convincing because it's an idea I can buy into, and it didn't require any technical explanation. The actual work being done could have been identical to the first mechanic, but this time he addressed the things below the surface, used language that made the fix feel achievable without getting lost in technical detail. Because what really holds people back from bigger opportunities isn't capability, it's failing to create belief. And when belief is missing, executives don't believe that you're the person who can get them the results they want. That's what holds even smart professionals back from moving into senior positions. But there is a final piece to this framework that is critical to get right if you want to become an executive fast, because without it, even if you get the first 2 steps correctly, ideas still get rejected, and eventually so do you when bigger roles come up. The good news is this fix is dead simple. Honestly, it's the closest thing I have to a hack because it only requires a single word: to do it, anyone can do this. So let me show you how this one word can be the easiest thing you can do in your next meeting to build credibility with executives and position yourself for senior roles. So the final part of this framework is risk. And most professionals get this wrong because they think managing risk in these contexts means adding mitigation plans and caveats and more detail. But there's a way to make your idea sound risk aware without sacrificing clarity or getting technical. And it's by using the word without. This is something I use every single day in senior boardrooms, and it's unbelievably simple. Whenever I state a benefit, whether it's a benefit at the above or below the surface, I just follow it up by saying without and then name some kind of downside that's been removed. So using the mechanic example, instead of just saying this fix is a long-term solution, you might say this fix is a long-term solution without creating further problems down the line. By doing that, you've addressed risk without explaining the mechanics and ticked off two undersurface desires by rephrasing one of them as a negative that your solution avoids. And that's it. It works with almost anything. By using the word without, you're showing executives that you've thought through the downsides without dragging them through technical detail. And this builds authority and credibility fast, which leads to more trust, more buy-in, and more senior opportunities. But there is one last problem. Even when the plan is really good, executives may still think, this is good, but we need someone else to actually deliver it. So next, I'll show you how to solve that one with a simple tweak to the framework. So the problem that a lot of people run into is this. They come up with great ideas, but the credit always ends up seeming to go to someone else. And when that happens, it doesn't just sting in the moment, it damages how you're seen long term, and it slows down your progression into bigger roles. And it usually comes down to one simple mistake, and that is detaching yourself from the result. So let me show you now exactly how to avoid that and position yourself as the obvious person to deliver the outcome. The trick is to get the senior audience to mentally place you in a future where the result has already been delivered, because once they do that, they naturally associate you with making it happen. And when that happens, the trust shifts, the ownership shifts, and that's when opportunities start following up for you. And the way to do this is surprisingly simple. You introduce a result that can only be true if you've already delivered the original outcome. And that forces the audience into a future thinking state where you're already the one who's done the job. Let me show you an example of this. So going back to the mechanic, imagine he'd said something like, oh, and by the way, your tires will need changing in a few weeks. They're okay now, but I can order some early and that's going to keep the cost down. And then in a few weeks, just bring the car back and I'll fit them for you at a really good rate. What this does is it makes me imagine a future where he's already fixed my car, and now there's another benefit that I want in that future. But the only way I can get that benefit is if he's the one who completed the original work. But you only get to do this if you really understand what your audience wants in the first place. So go and watch this video next. I'll show you how to identify the outcomes executives actually care about and tie all of this together into a single cohesive message that protects your ideas and accelerates your career.